read your thoughts. From the future.
The movies of 1985.
Hello, everybody. It is week 51 of the year 1985. That's Tuesday, the 17th of December to Monday, the 23rd of December. My name is Jason Hutchins. I'm stuck in 1985, and each week I select a random movie to watch by Bingo Machine, and then I go to a local video store in Perth, Western Australia to rent it out. So, without further ado, let's spin the bingo machine and see what we've got to watch this week. There's only 2 balls left. Yes. And, yeah, you can hear the sound there. Sort of hoping this is going to work. One's come out. And it is number 42, the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything, isn't it? Now, let's have a look at my spreadsheet. Number 42 is a very Christmassy movie, I think, called Hail Mary. It's a French movie, and I think it's incredibly controversial. I've never seen it. I think it's a modern retelling of the birth of Christ, and it probably offends a whole lot of people as well. But it's on my list, so I'm going to go over to, let me see, Video Easy in Applecross. Like all of these old little video stores are starting to be bought up by these massive conglomerates, and Video Easy is the latest one. We had Civic Video last week. They're taking over all the classic video stores. Anyway, I'm going to go over to Video Easy in Applecross, quite nearby to where I live, and I'm going to pick up Hail Mary because I'm sure they'll have a controversial French movie in Video Easy. While I'm doing that, let me flick on the TV so you can watch an ad.
When it's time to stop for that rewarding break, don't just have a snack, have a picnic. Cadbury Picnic, crisp wafer, soft creamy caramel, tasty rice crisps, crunchy peanuts. It's the delicious combination that lets you have a picnic anywhere.
Okay, I'm back. Just put this in.
Don't just have a break, have a Cadbury Picnic.
So I have got the VHS copy of Hail Mary, banned, it says on the cover, in a big red stamp, like that cancelled stamp. A film by Jean-Luc Godard. Now, he's a famous French director, known mostly for his movies in the 60s, I think, although he kept on working up into the 2010s, I believe. Now, the only photograph on the cover is a picture of a woman's stomach with a hand reaching towards it as if to touch it. It's a bit hard to tell if she's pregnant or not. If she is, she's not fully pregnant. Up the top, the title, Hail Mary. And down the bottom, if I look very closely, it says the Book of Mary. So obviously based on the nativity story. Flipping over onto the back, we have a photograph of a little family, a man eating his breakfast with his son with his back to us, and this lady in blue looking over them both. And up the top it says, the most controversial film of the 1980s. Now, I do like watching controversial movies. It's always good to see where the limits are, isn't it? Just to see where people are pushing the envelope and to understand maybe why these things get banned or why people believe they're blasphemous or whatever. A triumph hailed critics, it says on the back. Blasphemy decried detractors. Beyond all the other films in his long list of accomplishments, this bold work from French master director Jean-Luc Godard touched off an uproar heard around the world. Why such controversy over Hail Mary? The story, a modern-day tale of virgin birth. It's impossible, it's unthinkable, but it's true. A teenage innocent becomes pregnant. Forced to face a shocking reality, the girl and her fiancé, family and friends struggle to cope. as the provocative theme unfolds with the skilled touch of Godard. A sensational work of film that not all would call art, but one that's undeniably affecting. Blasphemy or miracle? Hail Mary dares to pose the question. So there you go. What more can be said than that? So I think it's time now to dim the lights, to put away our Christmas decorations, to get our bowl of popcorn and press play on tape to watch Hail Mary.
Où t'en es avec Marie?
C'est mes affaires.
Chaque fois qu'il y a un passage, tu n'hésites pas. Il faut absolument l'empêcher de passer. C'est tout.
Je me demandais si quelque événement allait survenir dans ma vie.
Pédale et tu rechauffes. Allez, c'est bon? Dans la bise.
De l'amour, je n'avais que l'ombre, oui. Et même l'ombre du nombre. Comme lorsqu'on aperçoit dans les temps le reflet d'un nénuphar. Non pas tranquille, mais agité par les rides de l'eau. Si bien que ce reflet tout déformé vous échappe en partie. Cependant,
Et que le
monde en
soleil
était
No, this is not my kind of movie at all. I haven't really seen many Jean-Luc Godard films. They're art house films, I would say, and they might normally appeal to me, but I just bounced off this one pretty hard, just like Mary's basketball playing in the movie. I think it's the way that he edits his movies. It's very haphazard and it looks a bit clumsy and amateurish, and especially the audio mixing, which I think that what Godard did is he just sat down at a mixing desk and just fiddled with it in real time as he was watching the movie screen and just faded different sounds in and out again. And you heard it a little bit in the trailer, but it's really bad. Like you'll be watching a scene set in the countryside and boom, suddenly some orchestral music will fade in, boom, fade out again, boom, in, out. And it just is so distracting. It doesn't really match up with the action. And I guess maybe that's arty, but it was such an artifice, I guess, that I couldn't really get into what the movie was trying to say. And really, it was just a retelling of the story of the virgin birth in a modern context. So there's a young girl called Mary, and in terms of nudity, I mean, this movie and last week's movie, Life Force, they take the cake for the movies that we've seen this year, because this is a lot about the body of Mary and the fact that she's carrying God's child, I suppose, and her boyfriend, Joseph, has got to learn to relate to that in some way, and basically the whole movie is his struggle, I guess, to come to terms with it, and then at the end he finally does. And then the other characters are Gabriel, who's, sort of confronts Mary and announces what's going on. There was an unexpected Rubik's Cube moment, which I thought was interesting. We would have liked that. Really an obvious symbol for something to be puzzled out. We see that as we hear a lecture on evolution, so that's another of the storylines, How did human beings come to populate the earth? Was it from divine creation, or was it evolution, or was it, what do they call it? I can't remember the name with it. Panspermia, I think it's called, which is where the seed of life comes from another planet, which is kind of what this lecturer is theorizing on when we see the Rubik's Cube. And another very artsy thing that happens is this title card keeps popping up, and it always says the same thing at that time. Sort of in between scenes, it just pops up at that time. So it's all a little bit mysterious, but not in a fun David Lynch kind of way, but in a very sort of highbrow, slightly boring kind of way. So I really did not like it. Now, at the 38th Cannes Film Festival in 1985, Belgian anarchist Noel Godin hurled a cream pie into Godard's face. And you can see a clip of this on YouTube, and Godard ends up, eating the pie as it's stripping off his face. Now, that made international news. You would think that he was protesting blasphemy, because there was certainly a lot of protests about this movie, and it was banned in quite a lot of places. But he was disappointed that Godard had made a religious film. Pope John Paul II was far less amused, issuing a formal telegram, which very rarely happens, declaring the film deeply wounds the religious sentiment of believers and distorts and slanders the spiritual significance and historic value of fundamental themes of the Christian faith. And the Sydney Film Festival, when it was premiering this movie, was evacuated after receiving a bomb threat. The New York Film Festival, basically at the New York Film Festival, Godard delivered a punchline saying that the Pope was his press agent, drumming up a lot of interest in the movie. But at New York's Lincoln Center, over 2,000 protesters from various Catholic organizations around the country marched for hours, singing hymns and so forth and reciting prayers beside a statue of the Virgin Mary. Roger Ebert wrote that the people on the picket line, specifically those people at the Lincoln Center, would be protesting against a film that most of them will have not seen and never will see. And the irony is that with their devotion to Mary, they are perhaps the best people who might find the film genuinely interesting and have some kind of commentary. But, just protesting it as blasphemy and trying to get it banned is probably the worst thing they could have done. They perhaps could have used that as a springboard for talking about religion. Anyway, the ultimate irony came at the 35th Berlin International Film Festival, where the film actually won an award given by the International Catholic Cinema Office, which is an art house honour given by Catholics to movies. Now, I am going to give this movie 2.5 stars. I'm going to say it's Cactus. I really wanted to like a Godard film. It's really interesting, I think, that it was number 42 and that it came right before Christmas, because it is the most religious film we've had all year. But I didn't really get any the movie didn't make me think. It didn't make me question things. It was just a bit of a grind to get through. So enough said about that. And now,
I'm driving along and I'm just singing my song. I'm in a news-free zone.
well, welcome to the News-Free Zone, everybody. It's that time of the podcast where we look back at the news for this week 40 years ago in 1985, so we don't have to look at what's happening in 2025. Now, this week in 1985, The Colour Purple, Out of Africa, Brazil, and The Trip to Bountiful were released. Now that latter movie is not on my list. Now, it got a standing ovation at the Oscars for Geraldine Page's career-defining performance, but to me it looked like an old lady movie, like Driving Miss Daisy, so it wasn't really of any interest to me, and it was rightly not on my list because I don't think I would have enjoyed it. Having said that, there's probably a few other movies that shouldn't have been on my list in the first place. Now, this week in 1985, Hudson Soft released Bomberman for the Famicom in Japan. This game holds a remarkable production anecdote. Programmer Shinichi Nakamoto created the entire Famicom version in a marathon 72-hour coding session, reportedly chewing pencils when he ran out of gum without ever looking away from his screen. The game concealed an Easter egg connecting it to the Lode Runner universe. Upon completion of the game, Bomberman transforms into Lode Runner's protagonist. Now, I played a lot of Bomberman in the guise of the Amiga version of the game, which was called Dynablasters, but it was an official conversion, and we played that a lot back when I was at the University Computer Club at UWA in the early to mid-90s. This week also, Yu Suzuki's revolutionary arcade game Space Harrier was released to arcades in Japan, with the game's voice sample Welcome to the Fantasy Zone becoming iconic. In the UK, Shaking Stevens' Merry Christmas Everyone claimed the Christmas #1 spot, and it still charts every December 40 years later. It's a pretty bad song if you watch it on YouTube. And finally, this week in 1985, President Ronald Reagan vetoed the Textile and Apparel Industries Bill, which would have cut imports from Taiwan, South Korea and Hong Kong by 30%. Imagine that, a president refusing to reduce imports. Reagan actually warned of foreign retaliation against US exports. Interesting. Maybe a certain president should learn from this. The loss of American jobs, losses to American businesses, and so on. So over on Usenet for this week, in net.games.video, Keith Hatfull wrote, I have in the past few months become very addicted to the seemingly ancient game of Gyrus. He's talking about the arcade game. I seem to have become pretty good. I can usually triple or quadruple the high score on any given machine here in the Lexington area. My question is, what are some of the high scores in other places? I'm even curious to know what some other people are scoring, or if anyone else even plays the game. My high score is 701,400 points, playing time 75 minutes. If anyone knows of a score higher or close to mine, please reply. I'm anxious to know. Well, Keith, from the future, I am happy to report that the current Gyrus arcade high score is held by Kim Krobke, who achieved 70,736,950 points in 2019 during a 62-hour marathon, putting your 701,000 in 75 minutes to shame. So, boo-hoo to you, Keith Hatfull. I'm a bit of a Christmas bar humbug at the moment, aren't I? Now, what was Pepys doing 360 years ago this week? Well, his cousin Thomas Pepys came to dine, and Pepys treated him graciously, making mighty of him, while privately recording that a sorry, dull fellow he is, fit for nothing, that is ingenious, nor is there a turd of kindness or service to be had from him. So some cruel words for his cousin behind his back. At Westminster Hall, Mr. Batten showed Pepys his hare's foot and explained that the critical magical component is having the joint still attached. And Batten swore that he never had his colic since he carried it about with him. What happens next is Pepys went out to get a hare and chopped off its foot and wrote that it is a strange thing how fancy works, for I no sooner almost handled his foot, but my belly began to be loose and to break wind, and whereas I was in some pain yesterday, I became very well, and so continue. So yes, Pepys carried around a hare's foot that made him fart. Now, Pepys, the fact that Pepys immediately went to buy a hare's foot is interesting because he stayed up until 2 a.m. that very night reading Robert Hooke's Micrographia, which he called the most ingenious book that ever I read in my life, describing it as a most excellent piece and of which I am very proud. And that was a science book, wasn't it? And it is so interesting. It is the 1660s, and the same person can have enthusiasm for cutting-edge science and scientific revolution while at the same time being comfortable and have complete faith in a, what would you call it, a folk remedy like touching a rabbit's foot, and trusting that it would cure your digestive complaints. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. I hope you have a good Christmas. I'll be back for one more episode before the end of the year. And this week, instead of listening to the Beyond 2000 closing theme, we'll listen to something interesting from Ireland about the movie that we just watched this week, Hail Mary. So until next week, don't forget to rewind.
Opposition to the screening of the film came from several prayer groups in Galway and from supporters as far afield as Cork and Kerry. During the afternoon, they mounted a protest demonstration at the college entrance and said they were determined to stop the film being shown. The Film Society said it was equally determined to go ahead with its plans to give the film its Irish premiere in one of the college theatres. But by mid-afternoon, the UCG authorities announced that the screening would not be allowed to take place. The college said it had reluctantly decided to withdraw facilities when the views of the Film Society were balanced against the sense of offence the screening would give to the larger community. Society members who arrived unaware of the ban were outraged by the decision and began looking for an alternative venue.
We fear the possible consequences this decision could have for academic freedom and research within the university and for the cultivation of the arts in society at large. The Society is making every effort to find an alternative venue for tonight. If such a venue is found, the film will be screened to an invited audience of present members and the press. The limited audience is, of course, entirely for reasons of space.
As the behind-the-scenes search for another venue continued for more than an hour, there was repeated condemnation of the college authorities from society members, many of them distinguished academics and filmmakers.
Well, I think it's an act of moral and intellectual cowardice. I teach, for example, Joyce's Ulysses. The college should now be consistent and ban Ulysses, take it off the shelves, refuse to allow us to lecture on it because it's blasphemous too. For example, the Ballad of Joking Jesus is very much the same territory as Godard's film, as I understand it.
In my view, it is neither pornographic nor offensive. It deals with a serious subject in a responsible and sensitive way. It puts the biblical story in a modern and secular context, and in my view, it is permeated with quite a religious and spiritual aura.
I'm quite horrified that a university should prevent the showing of a film in a place that is supposed to be the preserver of free speech.
But gradually, those who supported the college stand and opposed the planned screening began to take up the argument and became involved in heated exchanges with the majority of the students and Film Society members.
My point of view is that if a person is in charge of a place and he decides to lock it up, he's in his rights to do so.
This goes back, who is in charge of the university?
I can't believe it. It's disgraceful.
The governor has been voted in charge of the university by the people who run this university.
And he's in charge of everything that goes on here. And there is no such thing as academic freedom. There is no such thing as a liberal tradition in universities.
He's voted in charge of it for a year. Now, if people don't agree with what he did this year, somebody has to be voted in next year and he'd take a different attitude.
Let's stay here. Let's stay here, all of us.
Okay.
When I heard that this film was going to be shown tonight, really, it really disgusted me. From what I've heard of this film, I know that the Pope has come out very strongly against it. The Vatican has come out very strongly against it. Now, that is enough for me to realise, I don't have to see the film, that is enough for me to realise that it is in fact pornography, blasphemous pornography. And there's really, I think a society which has lost a sense of outrage, and have been outraged by what I hear about this film, has lost its sense of morality.
Meanwhile, outside the college in the wind and rain, a group of more than 60 people took part in what they described as a vigil of atonement for this blasphemous film. Most of those in this group travelled more than 150 miles in specially chartered coaches from Cork and Kerry.
What we are trying to do is to prevent this filth from touching our youth. We have had enough of it, and there are terrible things going to happen because Our Lady is holding back God's hand for the evil things that are being done in the world. And that's what we are here, to uphold the name of Mary, and we don't want anyone to blaspheme against her. She is our mother, she's our queen and our hope, and I think her son won't allow this film to be shown anywhere.
The members of the society, either Galway or otherwise, are a representative of Satan's army in the world and in Ireland, and for this we're repairing in our little way.
This is a direct insult to the Mother of God, and it's a public blasphemy. I felt obliged to come here and express my views against this film, and I believe I represent the views of the majority of the people of Ireland.
Back inside, the argument for and against the film gained momentum as some of the prayer group confronted Film Society members who were becoming increasingly annoyed by the ban.
We are Catholics and we pay, a lot of us are working and we pay tax. Now the majority in this state are Catholic and taxpayers.
We're not all
And
Catholics.
this is a university.
I'm a Methodist and I want to see the film. I'm very interested in seeing this film. And why do Catholics
Why do you want to see it?
Why do
I'm
Catholics
not
think?
insulting your religion.
No, you're not.
This film is,
but you're
this
insulting my
film
intelligence.
is an absolute
Am I?
disgrace. The film is a blasphemy. The film was banned by the Pope in Rome.
Eventually, it was announced that there would be a private, limited showing of the film in the home of a college lecturer a mile off campus, and an invited audience of about 40 left to see for themselves what had given rise to all the controversy. As they departed, the prayer group said they were delighted that their point of view had triumphed, and they would now be taking steps to ensure that the film would not be shown in Cork, as they had been led to believe it might be.